Did you ever find anybody like a parental figure within the military, or no? Does that happen?
I th- I think it I think it's possible depending on the relationships that you build within your unit. But my unit was, and my experience is limited, to what I went through. But my unit was shaped in such a way that the people directly over me were, even at 18 and 19, the people directly over me were 22, 23, and I
Right.
spent a lot of time with the people around me who were my own age, and in a different unit, in a different situation around older people, I think it might have been, I think there might have been a father figure that could have stepped forward, even inadvertently. Um,
Right.
but there was no one of that sort for me.
Do you think that perhaps like an older brother or an older sister, like even since you've been out and coming across other people that have served, that maybe instead of doing it within the 2000s, they did it back in the 90s or the 80s, that you're coming across that when you're interviewing them, does it feel like they're kind of a father figure? You'd be like, damn, you'd be a pretty good father.
There's been a couple of guys that I've complimented on their awesome dadness, and I always feel weird doing it, but I've
Why?
just like that macho thing where it's like I'm not really good at receiving compliments, so I feel a bit uncomfortable giving them in certain situations.
Sure.
If it was like just off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to compliment you like on your strength. Like if you were physically strong, like that would be a weird thing for me to compliment you on. So I forgot where I was going with that, but in terms of someone younger feeling that role, not to be too melodramatic, but I I just don't make friends. I don't, and part of this is on me. You just from past experience of losing friends and not
Right.
wanting to lose more friends. I like my best friend. Man, I hope I don't cry.
You're fine.
He killed himself, and ever since then, I've just kind of been like, I have buddies, and
Right.
that they might be quote unquote friends, but I'm never going to put them in a situation where they have to prove that to me, because I don't trust that I will have that again.
Right.
And so there's no, there, like I said, there's been a couple times that I've interviewed people, and I've been like, wow, you remind me of my dad in a way, or like, I wish you were my dad in a way.
Right.
But those people did not, they did not choose to retain a relationship after the podcast, and I did not take any steps to reach out to them as well.
And
So
nothing wrong with that.
yeah, yeah,
It
like
just, yeah.
I don't feel like there was any missed opportunities or anything. It's just that to your question, there have been a
Right.
couple people that may have possibly filled that role. But in terms of people like a younger, or I'm sorry, an older brother, older sister type of age, there's that I just haven't given anybody like that the opportunity.
Do you feel that aside from a parental type thing where I was asking you, have you made any kind of relationships to people that are that would fill that role for you as a mother, father, or as a mentor? And I know you're working on yourself, and you're working on yourself being a father to your own son. Do you feel that there's any desire within you to mentor younger people?
I
I don't know how old are you?
I will be. Let me do the math. I will be 42 in September.
Oh wow, okay. So I thought you were a lot younger than I was. I'm almost 50. But do you feel like you would be a pretty good mentor, or you're like, look, I'm struggling with just being a good person and dealing with my, being a good dad to my son? Or is there a little desire for you to be like, you know what? I think I would be a good mentor if the right thing were to come along, or does that go with you not wanting to go out looking for friends or anything? Because I think being a mentor and friends are completely different.
Oh yeah, for
What do you
sure.
think?
Definitely different levels there in terms of intimacy. I think that I like looking at it from the outside. I probably have something to provide in a mentor as a mentor role or whatever you want to
Right.
call it. But in terms of finding someone, I, my limited social circle, they don't have anyone like there's no mom that I know that doesn't have a father, that has a son or daughter that needs that type of role filled. So it would be something that I think just making the assumption I think would come into play maybe when my son was a little bit older and getting into things like you mentioned, like sports, soccer, baseball, whatever the case
Hmm.
may be, where I am
Right.
then forcibly exposed to these other kids that, maybe I see them coming to the game and dad's never around or, something like that.
Right.
I did have as shortly after I graduated, I thought I was going to get into child protective services. They recruited me and wanted me to come on for a second interview, and I did some soul searching and realized that I did not have it in me to endure that type of psychological trauma day after day. And on top of that, I was going to have to um, testify in court regularly
Yeah.
should it reach that level, and that was just not something I was going to be able to handle. So there is a part of me that wants to help the youth and in some form or fashion, just because I know that I could have benefited. I did have a grandpa. Um, he wasn't like my real grandpa. He had my grandma had already divorced him, but he did try his best, and he taught me various lessons in terms of like work hard and don't expect people to like when you help people, don't expect them to thank you or pay you back.
Sure.
And like rather adult life lessons that did stick with me. He was the one that taught me to drive, and so I had him, but had he had been extremely abusive when he had been my dad's stepdad,
Hmm.
and so he was on a very short leash from everybody. And I didn't realize this until later on in life because you don't tell a kid this, but they like various people never trusted him around me, and so he was only able to you know give so much, I guess, or do so much for fear of one of them getting afraid or getting mad and you know having everybody team up and push him away.
Right.
And that's consequences of your actions. From what I've been told, he was an awful person. From what I've been told, which is you don't hear these things until people start dying. My dad, he died last year. My grandma died a month before him, and I come to find out that apparently every man in my ancestry, going back to so my me, okay, my dad was not abusive, but his dad was abusive. His dad's dad was abusive, and his dad's dad was abusive to the point
And
where
you're talking physically abusive.
physically, emotionally abusive to at least one or more of their kids. And so I didn't know that until after my dad was dead, and I really had no respect for him as a father at all until then. And then I started realizing that at least okay, he didn't know how to be a dad, but he broke that cycle of abuse. At least he
Hmm.
never physically or emotionally or any way abused me. So
Okay.
that is that is really something that I wish I could have like thanked him for. But like I said, it's these are things that you learn like after people die, and you never
Sure.
really like you may never have known otherwise.
And you have no control over. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's
Yeah.
nice to, I guess, know about that at some point. Do you feel like you kind of have X-ray vision to spot a young version of you? So let's say your kid grows up a little bit older and is around, and you mentioned, you're going to games or something, and you're seeing a kid who's maybe dad isn't there, which it could be he's very busy. I don't, a lot of different scenarios. But do you think now at 40, you have a special X-ray vision that you could spot you, or no?
I think that I think it's kind of complicated because I probably would be able to spot me, but my self-esteem, my self-confidence has always been so low that I would immediately be like, quit being stupid. You're dumb. There's nothing wrong with that kid. And, and immediately like look away and put it to the back of my mind. So it would be, it's kind of rough because I might see it, but as far as acting on it, it would be unless I was like you, in a like a coach position, something of that sort, where I was, interacting with that kid on an everyday basis. But if I
Right.
was like at the stands, looking down on the field or just before or after interactions, I think I would be able to spot it because I know what someone who's super depressed looks like, and someone who's super lonely. I know what that looks like, and on your
Right.
your posture and your face and what have you. Like I said, even with that being the case, taking a step to try and do something like that in this day and age, even it's very complicated because first and foremost, I'm a grown man approaching a young child that I'm not related to. So, there's that immediate boundary that
Understandable.
you got
Yeah.
to get around.